that it has officially been sworn in, coalition agreements have been signed, and really think about what it means for Arab citizens of Israel and Jewish-Arab relations. The second purpose is a chance to come together as colleagues, to process the new landscape in Israel, reflect, and think about what it means for each of us in our respective work and engagement, particularly regarding this topic of Arab citizens of Israel. We were just mentioning that most of us were at the annual meeting together, and we certainly know a lot more today than we did then, with the coalition of agreements having been signed, as I mentioned, and as we can see, the government is very quickly getting to work. So now we're really looking at the details. People are looking at what's being prioritized, how these plans are going to be implemented, and what they mean for Israeli society. Just have to open a newspaper to see that so much is happening already and things continue to move every day. And I think that when that happens, the topic of Arab citizens of Israel and Jewish-Arab relations can become less of a focal point in discourse and be something that falls a little bit to the background, perhaps. But we all join this call today because this is a topic that we're familiar with and we care about. We're talking about 21% of Israel's population, how they're going to be affected by this government and shifts it does or doesn't create on the ground. This also has real implications for social cohesion for broader society, and it touches on issues that have implications for the character of Israel's democracy and its standing. So it's important to look at this issue in its own right and think about it in the broader context of what's happening in Israeli society. You know, just talking now, I hear how huge of a topic this is and how much weight it carries in different ways for all of us. So I want to note that this is part of a much broader and longer process that we're all undertaking with IATF and in other ways to learn and navigate this new government. And we hope that you continue beyond this call to lean in, learn with us, and be part of a community of peers. And we hope you'll find this call as a valuable part of that. We're committed to trying to offer more of these types of opportunities moving forward so you can learn with us, other experts and practitioners in the field, and also with each other. So this is really, you know, just a small part of that. I don't want to take up any more of our time because we have Ilan and Shahira here with us, our experts on the ground in Israel. And I've asked them each to share a little bit from their perspective on what's been happening in recent weeks since the annual meeting, looking at the different aspects of the government and what it has meant and what we're seeing things going related to the topics of Arab citizens of Israel and Jewish-Arab relations. So first we'll pass it off to Ilan and then Shahira.
Thank you, Erica. And I agree. It is amazing to see how much happened since our last meeting at the annual meeting. I want to say I really appreciate you joining us this evening, this afternoon, and I think it's very important for us to understand the changes that the new government is making, so the field can also remain focused on taking the right actions of coping with those changes. What I've been doing in the past week. And I don't want to jump too deep into the details. What I've been doing in the past week and a half is going through the coalitional agreements signed between the Likud and the other coalition members, such as Otzma Yehudit, Shas, etc. I've been going through those coalitional agreements and the blitz of new legislation that is taking place in the parliament, in the Knesset. And me, together with other parallels in the field, we've been crossing those with the new government resolutions such as 550, which you're already familiar with because we've been talking about it forever. And we're looking for changes, reversal of sections of the law, or reduction of budgets within the new coalitional agreements, trying to find out the crucial changes. What are the crucial changes that the new government has been doing in the past weeks since they came into office? And in this case, we're really trying to be not distracted by the populist discourse or by actions that are happening in the news. Did Ben Gvir go up to the Temple Mount? Did it not go up to the Temple Mount? That's less of what I'm focused on professionally and personally, but I'm really trying to understand what the impact is on Arab society by the actions that are taken by the new government. And I just want to give one very quick example as a demonstration of those kinds of changes that we've been digging out through those coalitional changes. So So one quick example is that under Government Resolution 550, and I'll keep it very short. Under Government Resolution 550, one of the regulations that passed was that the Negev Galil office, which is one of the most important offices for socioeconomic development of Arab society, for narrowing gaps between Jews and Arabs, for the creation of shared society, because the majority of Arab society lives either in the Negev or in the Galilee, the Negev Galilee office was obligated to allocate 30% of its annual budget to Arab society, and those 30% were equal to 103 million shekels per year. That passed under the Bennett-Lapid law, Bennett-Lapid government and the previous government. The new government, within the coalitional agreements, fixes the amount that that same governmental office allocates to Arab society on 103 million shekels. And at the next line, multiplies by 5, quintuples, did I just make up a word in English? Doubles by 5 the annual budget of the Negev Galil office to 2 billion shekels. So instead of allocating about 600 million shekels to Arab society, the state will continue allocating 103 million shekels to Arab society. So there are many examples like that we're digging out from the coalitional agreements and seeing them within the new legislation. It's very hard to dig those things out and crossing the new agreements with the past government resolutions. But we're doing that because the field, civil society, Arab local authorities, philanthropy, activists, academics should be aware of the changes, the very practical changes that this new government is bringing. And there's a lot of these details. The bottom line here is that it creates a situation of surplus budgeting for Jewish society rather than for Arab society, which, in other words, means expanding gaps between Jews and Arabs rather than narrowing gaps between Jews and Arabs, which is not exactly what we would like to see in the field. And this is just a small example. You know where to find me if you're looking for additional examples. I think one of the things I want to say is that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the field, and in this sense, nothing really changed. The gaps between Jews and Arabs, the very low socioeconomic ranking of Arab local authorities, the barriers to employment and higher education in Arab society, the unrecognized villages in the Negev that are still unrecognized. The work that needs to be done remains the same work. There's still a lot of work ahead of us. Yes, the field has changed. Yes, the rules of the game are changing in front of our eyes, but the work is the same work. And I think that before handing this to Shahira, I want to say that I am personally worried, and I think there are a lot of reasons to be worried. I'm worried as an Israeli. I'm worried as a Jerusalemite. I'm worried as a father with kids within the Israeli educational system. I'm worried as a person who believes in a shared society. But I wouldn't want to leave you with a sense of desperation. Desperation is not a work plan. And I would want to leave you with a sense of urgency and a better understanding of what's ahead of us. What are the challenges that this new government is bringing to the field, and possibly also to think together creatively about ways to cope with those new changes that the government is bringing. I'll leave it at that for now. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a follow-up question before we move to Shahira sharing. So I remember last time when you and Shahira presented at the annual meeting, there were a lot of unknowns, and we kept talking about expectations, things that might happen. Since the government has taken office, do they see can you give us a sense of sort of the pacing of what's going on and the changes that you're already seeing, and how are things playing out compared to some of the things that we had been talking about ahead of time?
So what we're seeing is that this is not a forward-rushing populist government. We're seeing the evidence of a year of research, planning, data collection, policy planning among the people who are now directors and professional staff within those governmental agencies and authorities. We're seeing a lot of thinking and a lot of pre-preparedness to them taking place in the offices that they're now governing, I am almost certain that what we're seeing now is not the result of the work of the people we're seeing in the government. I'm almost 100% certain that there's think tanks such as the Kohelet Institute behind the policy papers and the data collection and the planning that we're seeing in the governmental offices. We also have to keep in mind the fact that Netanyahu has been the prime minister for over 12 years. And a lot of the people that we've been seeing around him in senior positions in the state ministries and authorities have been serving the government for over a decade. They know the job. They know how their offices work. They know how the legislation process operates. They know how the budgeting processes operate. And this has a lot of weight in the very fast pace that we're seeing in which things are progressing. Within under 2 weeks, they managed to pass God knows how many new laws and regulations, while entering each one to his designated office with a pre-prepared set of policy papers that are being implemented in front of our eyes. This is not a wait and see situation. This is happening, and it's happening very fast.
Thank you. We'll have time for a few more questions with Ilan, but I want to invite Shahira to come share with us. And just, I'll share the notes I put in the chat that I forgot to mention earlier. The first is you see us recording now. We're just recording this part of the conversation. We will not be recording when we move into small group discussions. And also, if you have questions that are coming up, clarifying or otherwise, feel free to write them in the chat, and we'll try to answer clarifying questions as we go, and also start thinking of questions to ask Shahira and Ilan. With that, Shahira, the floor is yours.
Okay, so thank you, Erica. Thank you, Ilan. I would like to add, to the Erica's opening remarks and to what Ilan said, that really we still in a learning process regarding what's going to happen and what changes will occur in the state of Israel. So some of the things that I'm bringing today, some of them are my assumptions, some of them are based on our, historical experience with Netanyahu's government in the past. So I would like to take you with me to the field, okay, and to talk about the what's happening today in the field, especially in the Arab society, and the things that we are, that the Arabs politicians and Arabs organizations and local authorities, what they are concerned about what's going to happen with the new coalition, because as Ilan said, that this coalition and these parties came to the government while they are well prepared. Okay, they know what kind of changes and what kinds of new laws that they wanna promote. So things are happening so fast, and sometimes when we talk in the field, during the last month, we are meeting organizations and activists and people from the field and from the government officials, and we are asking them about what's happening. And one of the main things that we can see, that the field wasn't prepared for this fast changes that are happening today, and for the new laws that are this coalition is promoting. We'll give you a few examples, or 2 examples, such like, the Der'i law, which allows person accused as criminal to serve as a minister in Israel, the Smotrich law that allows 2 defense ministers with the Ministry of Defense. So these situations define the distributions of power and resources, both in interest of power groups. So people on the ground, Jews and Arabs, organizations, politicians, activists, and general people are really concerned of what's going to happen. And if I take you more, to make what we call it, to focus on, or to zoom the general atmosphere in the Arab society. And most of the people and most of the organization are really concerned about the right-wing government and the line that it's gonna lead on the Arab community or the Arab situation. I'll give you two main things that really people in the field are concerned about. The first one is cutting the budgets, including all this socioeconomic advancements of an Arab society. The budgets that were approved in the previous government, the budget that Ilan was talking about, such the government resolution 550 or government resolution regarding to the Negev and to the mixed cities. These resolutions were based, were achieved by years of working of the local authorities and the Arab parties in the Knesset and also the NGOs, and working with government ministries in order to achieve these kinds of progressive resolutions. But most of the Arab authorities and Arab politicians are really concerned about what's going to happen for this resolution, for this budget is. And as we heard from Ilan, the cutting is started. And the second thing that's really we are concerned about, I'm saying we, it's me also concerned, just like Ilan said, that we are personally concerned, and most of the organizations and the people in the streets are concerned about the extreme power that Ben Gvir has as a minister of the national security. People in the streets and start talking about that they are afraid and they're concerned about over policing toward the Arab population and violent and racist attitude toward Arab society, especially with regard to political activity and resistance. Their concerns here as being to overuse of force and power against especially political groups and activists, and they are concerned that most of any political activity and political protest will turn into security issues. And that the Arab community also are involved, in political resistance, sometimes political demonstrations. So we are really concerned about these issues. But in the meantime, it's important to know that these changes are happening in a very structural way, are also started to be to threaten not only the Arab population, but it's also it become to be concern for different groups in the Jewish in the Jewish society. The fear of over religions of the states and the establish of religions laws that limit the personal freedom and the freedom of action, the freedom of choices for different citizens and different groups and citizens. This kind of a concern really brings this, brings more individuals, group, and activists and organization to think that it's the best time and also the crucial time to start to work together towards promoting short society. And in this term, some people are defining this as an opportunity. I'm trying to find opportunity in this situation, but for some groups that they're trying and they started to reorganize themselves, they started to talk about, Arab Jewish Party to run to the Knesset to the next elections, and a few groups of organizations start to establish as kind of coalitions in order to think together what should they do. So if we think about something for the future that we need to do together, is just to look over and to see where can we be with this kind of groups and how can we support the progressive groups who would like to struggle against or to avoid the violence and the damage of the democratic principles in the state of Israel.
Thank you, Shahira. We have a few moments for people to ask questions. So if people want to start putting questions in the chat, that would be great. Meanwhile, I'll ask a first question. I'll ask this for Ilan. Something I was curious for your take on was I shared with everyone an article Nasreen wrote. She also spoke at the annual meeting, and her take was that she thinks socioeconomic development efforts, continuing narrowing gaps, those are going to continue to happen because it's beneficial for the economy, but that she was concerned about anti-democratic legislation, in her words, or different policies that affect social cohesion and the standing of Arab citizens in society more than the socioeconomic issues. So I was wondering, does that resonate with you, or are you seeing the situation differently?
I think socioeconomic, the socioeconomic work will continue, but I'm afraid it is about to be slowed down. I don't think we will manage as a field, civil society organizations, Arab local authorities, shared society organizations, philanthropy. I don't think it would be possible to move forward in the same pace we were moving forward under the Bennett-Lapid government. And again, the one example I gave was just the tip of the iceberg. There are many different examples to share, and all of those slow down the work of narrowing gaps between Jews and Arabs. I am worried personally as an Israeli Jew by the anti-democratic and the far-right legislation that we're seeing taking place in a very rapid pace in the government. But I have to say that I'm mostly worried about violence, another round of escalation and violence between Jews and Arabs. We all remember the May events. We all remember very painfully the previous rounds of escalation and violence. And we should be keeping an eye and be well aware of the fact that this year is a very special year in the sense that in this year, the Muslim and the Jewish calendars cross in April, and the Ramadan and the Passover vacations, holidays, are going to happen within the same 3 weeks. And we should be well aware of the fact that there's a very risky point in time in the coming April. And we should be also think of what can be possibly done about it.
Thanks. Shahira, I briefly wanted to throw that same question to you. Do you see sort of a difference in how socioeconomic gaps are going to be addressed in larger issues of shared society and social cohesion, or do you think that there's sort of no way to distinguish between how the government's relating to those fields?
My internet wasn't good. Can you please?
Sure. So do you think that the work on closing socioeconomic gaps is going to continue because the government says we need to take care of the economy? And how can that continue in the context of everything else that's going on?
Okay. Oh, thank you. Okay. Yeah. I think just like Ilan, okay, something will continue because you can't stop this progress because it's not about the government resolution or the government decisions. It's about a community that will continue its own life. People will continue working, and then the government should give budgets and for different services that the Arab community uses, like in education, like employment, and etc. But I'm really worried about some kind of limitations that they will put on the Arab society. Just like I will give you an example. One of the things that, one of the main processes that happened, during the last 20 years for the Arab society, that more and more people go to the academy. Okay, and some of them study abroad because they can't get, they can't be accepted to the universities in Israel. So they go to Europe to study. And there is a huge discourse now in the state of Israel if they are going to recognize this diploma or not. Okay, for years they're going to learn to be lawyers, physicians, and engineering and whatever. And then when they come back to Israel, they engage into the labor market of Israel. And now, there are huge discourse whether we should recognize this or not. It's mean years of learning and studying abroad will be, in a risk now. And it's not, there's no reason for these questions because these universities that the Arabs attend to were recognized for years. And some of the people who are coming back, the students who are coming back, are good workers and excellent researchers in Israel. But this is questioned by saying, This is something that I'm really aware about. We know how to stop you if we want. And this is what I'm concerned about, just like over policing and over controlling the progressive life that the Arab citizens want to go towards.
I think one thing I heard in that example that's also a theme I've heard both of you bring up in conversations that we've had as a team is that there are pieces of legislation and policy changes that don't explicitly state this is about Arab citizens of Israel, this is directly related to this issue. But in practice, the way it's set up, it's very much catering towards things that will affect that population more than the general population. Am I getting that right?
Yes, of course. If we are talking about more than 20,000 students studying abroad, okay, Arab students. So yeah, there are more students who are studying abroad in Europe, especially Arab students than Jewish students. So sometimes it's covered by, we want more professional people. We want the students to study at our universities and Israeli universities, but in the covered, and in hidden agenda, it's just to stop, this kind of progress. I don't know if they are going to do it or not. As I started my speech, I said some of the things are assumptions based on our past experience, but it might happen. And just like Ilan said that they were well prepared, we should prepare ourselves in order to stop this kind of damage.
I want to also add to this, Erica, and reply your question. I think there's no reason for this government to stand in front of camera and negate Arab society or call for racist actions. There's no need to do that. Those very nuanced changes to legislation, budgeting, regulations are more than enough in order to answer their needs. I'll give you an example from yesterday, from Lod. We just had a conversation with a colleague in Lod, who used to be a member of the council, an Arab member of the council, and the municipality of Lod published a call for application for student scholarships in Lod. But the call for applications was only published in Hebrew and demanded pre-military service in the CV. That's a very simple way to filter out Arab students from ever reaching to those scholarships and go study in higher education institutions. There's no need to actually stand there and say we don't want Arabs in our educational system. By those very nuanced actions, the government can make those things happen, become reality.
I think that leads perfectly into what I think will be the last question we take as a full group right now, to what Daniel and Ruth have started bringing up, was that you have the coalition, you have what it promises and what agreements say, and then you have what actually happens. How much of what has been promised in the coalition agreements have you been seeing coming to fruition so far? And we can't predict the future. We can only sort of look at what we've seen so far. Like, how much do you think is actually going to be enacted from these agreements?
Should I go, Shahira, or should I take it? I think there are some low-hanging fruits that this government can pick and push forward, such as the reversal of certain budgets and certain regulations. I see that, for example, Ariel Zwang asked about what are the odds or what are the possibilities for this government to retroactively cut or reverse previous budgets? A lot of possibilities through adding those little sections to the regulations and the law, such as demand pre-military military service in order to be eligible for certain budgets, or change very small regulations in the way that budgets are being allocated to our society in higher education and employment. There are a lot of possibilities on the table for this government. I think that if this government will be able to reach all that is written within the coalition agreements, we will be in deep trouble, not only because of issues concerning Arab society and shared society programs, simply because of issues concerning public transportation, housing, recycling, the environment. There are much broader issues here that are on the table than Arab society and shared society programs. I think that it also depends on how long this government would last. If this is a 4-year term, a full term in for this government, which is something we haven't seen for a long time in Israeli politics, they will manage to get a lot done. If this is going to be an additional 4-year term, we will see most of it being planned and done, including the creation of newly built cities, towns, villages for Jews from both sides of the Green Line. And this is a question of time, how long they'll be there.
So I think we're gonna pause this conversation here for now, although there is so much more we can talk about, and we're going to continue to do so in our small groups and also in future programs together. In a few moments, we're gonna do some brainstorming and processing and then move into our small groups. This very much by design is a small call with people who are engaging with these issues and people who are thinking about this and have already been in conversation together, and to give us an opportunity to continue that. So I want to just note a few things about the small groups that we're going to be doing. First is it's a confidential space. Please respect that. Don't share anything that anyone shared without getting their explicit permission. Of course, you can talk sort of in broad strokes about the conversation that we're having. And I also encourage you to take advantage of this being a confidential space, to use it as a place where you can process, reflect, share, try out new ideas, say things out loud that you've been thinking about, and know that this is a container that can hold that for you outside of our normal conversations in our work environments. So really try to take advantage of having this time and place where we can process together. And it's a space now we're co-creating. We're going to be talking to each other as each other, not one of us more of an expert as another, but learning from and with each other. And then I just want to note one more thing for these small groups. You heard Ilan and Shahira touch about, there are many different things on all of our minds relating to the new government, but the call today specifically pertains to the topic of Arab citizens of Israel and Jewish-Arab relations. So I'd ask you to try to keep your conversations focused on the areas that are what brought us here today with IATF. I'm going to share a link now in the chat to a Jamboard. Some of you may have used this before. Others may not. This you can all open in a separate